I don't really know what to talk about, so I'll just kind of go over a journal entry I wrote on the 30th of March. With all the books I read and information I gather, I don't become a slave or submissive follower to these teachings, as if they are a rule book or script to follow. I, of course, see a lot of this info as useful, but I have to be careful to still be devout to my paths in life. Aristo and Epictetus are both agreed. Aurelius even speaks on following the path that nature has provided us, and to not follow that what contradicts what is meant for us. I should be careful to not be a contrarian of any sorts or to fully base all my actions on initial thoughts. But it is still important, especially in great decisions, to follow the nature of who I am and what I'm shaping myself up to be. Some things need deep and thoughtful consideration, others we know what to do innately, but tend to hold off from those innate desires. There is gray area, but there's a difference between innately choosing an option because it will yield the best results and choosing an option because it will satisfy you or is easy to do. We will most likely choose the latter. The latter will give us little to no return. I must pursue the options I know will yield the most benefit. Those options are the hardest to complete. Freedom has its price. I have to be willing to pay. So, I was kind of reading this book called The Lives of the Stoics. So, I do mention three of them: Aristo, Epictetus, sorry, and Marcus Aurelius. So there are like these like Greek philosophers who kind of followed under the school, not the school, but kind of like the teaching of Stoicism, which is basically like to keep your calm throughout any situation and whatnot, and to be able to like regulate your emotions in a mature way. I'm pretty sure, you might know the term Stoic or Stoicism. It's become pretty popular in the last like 2 years or so. Um, so first off, I kind of mentioned like how all the books I read and whatnot. Like I said, I do find all this information very useful, and I try to my best to apply it. But I have to be careful not to like look at it as if it's some scripture, as if it's some like divine, rule book that I have to follow to a T. Um, of course, like these are people who wrote this stuff, and if I agree with something that they said, then I agree. If I disagree, then I disagree, right? If I apply these things, apply whatever their teachings are, and if it doesn't work out for me, then I should be open to trying something else instead of just like hitting a brick wall over and over again. And just to make sure it's like I don't allow for the entirety of these teachings to like set my path of life in a different direction, or at least in a direction that would be undesirable for me in the long run, right? Because it's like we will see so many things about like, oh, you should do this, and then you should do this because this is gonna make you money, and this is gonna do this, and we tend to stray away from like what we're actually passionate about because we're following some other type of goal or ideal. And then one thing I did mention was like, not to be a contrarian. So what I like to do is I like to try and question things that are popular, especially as of the late maybe year and a half or so. Just kind of see the popular things, and like why are they popular? Why do we even do them? Do we even need those things? Are we better without those things? An example, most recent or most biggest example in my life would be getting rid of my bed. So I sleep on the floor now. I sleep on like some sheets and covers. And I don't have a mattress. I don't have a bed set, a bed frame, whatever the case. I don't have that anymore. And I've noticed nothing but like really good benefits from sleeping directly on the floor. And it just made me wonder like why are we advertising mattresses, like these soft mattresses that are kind of actively destroying our bodies and doesn't allow us to access full ranges of motion in our bodies. And then another thing too was sitting in chairs, right? Sitting in your usual like 90-degree chair where your hips are in 90 degrees, your knees are in 90 degrees. And so what exactly does sitting for hours and hours on end, and they design chairs hours and hours on end to for us to sit in them for that long. And it's like, okay, why should I have to follow that? Why not me just get rid of my chair, Get a table low to the ground and just start working from the floor. Start sitting from the floor, and that's what I've been doing for the past couple of months, and I've noticed so many benefits in my mobility and everything like that. So I tend to look at things and just be like, what can I do differently? What's the opposite of this that might benefit? And I have to make sure I don't go about this with everything, or I don't take this to the extreme, or that I don't question. It's fine to question everything, but what's not fine is trying to be stubborn about it, basically, or you're questioning everything just because everybody thinks this way, right? Like, let's say everybody likes a movie, and then you're just gonna say the movie was bad because you just want to be the one that stands out, right? So be someone who asks questions, but don't be someone who's a contrarian, right? Don't be someone who kind of just makes assumptions based off of, what's against the popular opinion. You really have to go and analyze things and see, what's going on, right? All right. So, and then another thing I mentioned was how with some things, some decisions in life, they need deep thought and consideration. We need to focus on them. We need to think about them. And what happens is that, like, some other things, we can just know immediately what we should be doing, but we hold back on that, right? It's like this almost instinct like feeling of like choosing something, and we hold back on it because, okay, maybe that's not the right option. And that can be a really good thing, but sometimes some situations, and I guess it really just depends on how easily you're able to analyze each situation. Some situations require for you to act on it, with that instinctual desire, right? And I can't point anything out. Maybe I can't really point things out as like which situations those would be. But an example, like buying a house, right? That's gonna be something that's gonna need deep thought and deep consideration before you even think of putting your money anywhere. When it comes to buying a house, right? Because it's such a huge investment, and you want to make sure you're getting the right thing on the first time, right? And then maybe something about a partner, maybe possibly having a partner, or even a friend, that might just be an innate like feeling, like, you might, sometimes we can just see, okay, I think a relationship with this person is going to go very well. I think we're going to be very good friends. I think we're going to be very good partners and whatnot. So again, it's like you just kind of have to at the same time know yourself. And then about the last thing I mentioned here about certain decisions, right? So when it comes to innately choosing things and then having deep consideration, sometimes those innate desires are ones that are going to be easy. They're going to be ones that are going to be not that difficult. They're going to be the easy path to walk, right? And that's when we have to hold back. That's when we have to take ourselves, go into deep reflection, and just be like, okay, should I really eat this pizza right now, or should I really take the easy route? Should I go the path of least resistance, or should I really try and strive, right? Like how I said, I know that those options, the latter options, the bad options or the easy options, they will yield little to no result, right? And I have to pursue the options that I know will yield the most benefit, which are almost always going to be the most difficult options, right? And I have to be consistent with making difficult options because it's just going to be easier and easier every time I have to make any decision whatsoever. And I know that I got this because I've kind of trained myself mentally, even physically, technically, to take on those much harder and much more difficult tasks and options. But yeah, that's about like all I have to say. And then last thing I also mentioned, freedom has its price. I have to be willing to pay, right? So with freedom, right, it's not something that comes for free. Freedom is not free. Freedom costs everything, right? Freedom is going to cost sacrifices. It's going to cost finances. It's so many things, right? Education. Freedom is the inquiry of resources in order to be able to do whatever you want, right? And you can't just be free without nothing. You have to be free, and you have to have something, whether that be physical toughness, mental toughness, financial stability, probably all of these things, to be honest. So that way you are not a slave to anything, right? And when you're kind of doing whatever you want, unwillingly you kind of become a slave to these things. And I did mention that and my previous video about like the power of fasting. So if you want to kind of check that out on, and on those expanded ideas, you can. But that's about all I have to say. See you in the next video. Peace out.